Hi everyone, it's Nicole here today for Honeybee Stamps, and I am sharing a wedding themed card featuring the new Mr. and Mrs. stamp set coordinating dies and the Spring Blossoms stamp set and coordinating dies, and then pairing these with a Hexi Patterns background stencil. We're going to start with the stencil and some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to pick one of the stencils from this stencil set. There's actually 4 of them. They all have different Hexi type of backgrounds, and we're going to build kind of a distressed background for this card. The focal point of this card is the beautiful florals along the bottom edge, and then of course the sentiment. But I wanted to add some sort of interest to the design, and I'm doing that with Shaded Lilac and Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide inks. This is one of my very favorite color combinations, and I think it's so soft and pretty for all kinds of backgrounds. I use it for water backgrounds, and then I thought it would be beautiful for this. And I'm just using varying kind of pressure to apply my stencil background, so that some of it is lighter than other areas, and I'm just kind of mixing and matching and blending these 2 colors together. Even going to fill in a little bit of area here in the 2 corners. I didn't want quite so much white space, but I don't want to cover the whole thing. If you want to do a all over Hexi design, there is a stencil in the set that you could do that with as well. Now, I always love to add a little bit of water for distress. The water is going to wick away on these Distress Oxide inks and lighten some areas and just really give it an awesome distressed finish. Now I want to set that aside to completely dry. You could speed that process up with a heat tool if you want to. And then I've got scraps of Bristol Smooth cardstock. These are usually left over from larger projects like the background, but I keep them because they're fantastic if you want to create little embellishments like we're going to do today. One of my favorite things to do is to stamp and emboss florals and leaves with white embossing powder on Bristol Smooth cardstock, and then color them in with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. So I couldn't quite fit all of my images on this one scrap of paper, but this is a great project if you have scraps of Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is a fantastic project for that. Anytime you have little embellishments that you're going to color or add to a project, consider grabbing your little scrap stash. I keep one right with the rest of my Bristol Smooth cardstock so that anytime I need a small little piece like this, I can use up all of those scraps. Another little tip is to heat your tool kind of away from your paper before you bring it to your paper so that it's nice and warm. So by the time you get it to your paper, it will melt the embossing powder quicker and hopefully won't warp your paper too much. Now I know it's so hard to see when it's white embossed on white, but as I start coloring, I hope that you can tell kind of how I am doing this, and the flowers will start to take shape. I love this because I call it cheater's watercolor. For me, I am not the world's best watercolorer, but if I have embossed lines, I can fake it really well. And so maybe this is something that would work for you too. Plus the zigs are beautiful on the Bristol Smooth cardstock. Even if you wanted to stamp these with a regular ink and color them in with the zigs minus some water, I think that would be awesome. If you have tons of control over your watercoloring, you could even add some water to that or watercolor with traditional watercolors, and I think it would be beautiful as well. I like to lay down my dark color, blend out with my lighter color, and then blend with my water brush pen. This is going to give you that nice variation of color in the design. So pretty. I did forget to mention I added some bright yellow to the center of some of my flowers. That was just for a little extra pop of color. I also, instead of keeping all my flowers in that blue English lavender color combination that I used for the first flower, I mixed it up. I thought it would add some more interest. The blue and English lavender very much matches Blueprint Sketch and Shaded Lilac Distress Oxide inks, I feel. But I wanted it to have several colors. So we've got the blue there. The purple flower I just colored was purple and light violet. And then my final color combination is going to be purple and light. Wait. I'm so sorry. The one I just did was deep violet and light violet. This is purple and light violet. Sorry about that, guys. It's gonna end up being a little more pink. The purple color in the zigs, I think, is not terribly quote unquote purple. It is, but when paired with other colors, I think it has a tendency to go a little pink, which was totally fine. I like how it looks with the blue and purple flowers here. And then of course, light green and yellow green was what I used for the leaves. Now I die cut all of my flowers at one time. Just taped those down, ran them through my die cutting machine. My background is nice and dry now, so I'm going to put it in the Misty. This is always just a little safeguard for me. If I stamp the greeting and sprinkle on my embossing powder and it doesn't completely cover for whatever reason, then I can always stamp and emboss it again without ruining the background. So, or even if you just stamp it with a black ink or a purple ink, I think it would probably be pretty with blueprint sketch ink as well. A lot of times I love tone on tone like that. If you use your Misty and don't remove your stamps, they're going to stamp in the same exact place over and over. So you can get really nice coverage. Now I stamped this with clear embossing ink and then embossed with silver embossing powder. That was very intentional to match the die cutting of my sentiment that I am using. Instead of using the Mr. and Mrs. stamps from the Mr. and Mrs. stamp set, which you totally could, I'm going to use dies, and I am using the Mr. and Mrs. coordinating dies. There's actually 3 layers per word, or the ampersand. I'm only using the 2. So the sentiment itself and the ampersand and the first layer. And I die cut that first layer, the sentiment rather, from frosted silver tonic cardstock, and then the layer from vellum. And we'll add those in just a second. We're going to go ahead and add our flowers. I am attaching them with foam adhesive squares. Some of the leaves I'm attaching directly to, in fact, I think all of the leaves, I am attaching directly to the card base. So those are going to be flat and the flowers are all going to be popped up. And I'm intentionally layering some of the little tips and corners and sides and things off the side of my card. I can trim those off later. The background itself is A2 sized, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and this just gives it a much more grounded feel and look. So I'm going to go ahead and finish adding my leaves here to a couple of little spots, using some glue dots for the smaller pieces. And then I thought it was easiest to run my sentiments through a Xyron sticker maker. I don't know if I would do it again. I would do the silver sentiment through because some of it it doesn't lay as nice on the flat on an intricate detail. I may have just glued that down with a liquid adhesive, although it worked pretty well. But the vellum layer for sure, I love running it through the Xyron sticker maker because it puts a full layer of adhesive on the back of the vellum, so you don't have to try to be sneaky with hiding your adhesive, and it's going to lay nice and flat on your project. So I'm layering the silver sentiment, which is really kind of intricate, so pretty there, and I'm going to layer that on the vellum, and then we're just going to pop those up and layer these, or adhere these rather, right to the card underneath the stamped and embossed sentiment. So the whole greeting is going to read, "Best wishes to the new Mr. and Mrs." I love this greeting. I think it's so neat, and this is a really pretty kind of more elegant style card. I think you could create all kinds of different looks with these greetings. There's also a congratulation, love and kisses, so lots of ways to mix and match the greetings, I guess I want to say, so that you can create all kinds of different greetings. So I trimmed off the excess, and what I thought it would be fun to do is to create some little dewdrops all over my design. I decided to use Pale Periwinkle, which is a beautiful translucent and definitely goes with the theme of this card, which is that kind of bluish purple color. And then Morning Dew, which is my standby favorite dewdrop type of Nuvo crystal drop. Amazing. Both of these are translucent. Morning Dew is not clear like Glossy Accents or Nuvo Crystal Glaze, so it will have a slight I hate to say tint to it, but it's not going to be all the way clear. So don't use it for things like eyeglasses or something that you want to be able to see all the way through, even though it is a translucent color. That's going to finish up my wedding card, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today for this card featuring honeybee stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.